All right, hey guys, we're going to do some Mega-Kaiju work today. So give me a second here. I'm going to make sure I'm up and running. Then I'm going to post on the social medias that I'm live. And then we're going to get things up and running here. So give me a hot second. And then we're going to get things up and running. Yeah, it sounds like my volume's good. I'm really, really excited to do this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. So I'm going to push that up to a 30 volume so it should be coming through clear. I'm going to grab the link here. And again, it's just give me a few moments here to get up and running. Post. And post. Making sure those happened. Cool. And then post. Putting on the social medias here. The Twitter, the Reddits, all the bits. Copy, paste, and now I'm going to hit the Reddit, the Discords real quick. So let me just say, hey, well, thanks for checking this thing out. You're probably going to see it in the future, so thanks for checking in. My name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. And I have been creating content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition on the DMsGuild off and on since 2017. I've been a big Spelljammer enthusiast since when it came out, I think in 1991, and I've been a DM since '87. So I've been around the block for a while, and 5th edition is by far my my absolute favorite. Check, and then we're gonna get rid of that. Okay, cool. So I've got all my social medias updated. Shout out to the Spelljammer and Spelljammer 5e communities on Reddit, r/Spelljammer, r/Spelljammer 5e. For anyone that's still on the X Twitter platform, I'm at Phil Kearney. You can catch up with me there, catch looks at what we're doing, and find out when I'm live. Like, subscribe, bell icon, notifications. I'm at episode 382 of making Spelljammer shit since August 22. So the full playlist of everything that we've built is here, which starts with in August 2022 when 5th edition released the new version of Spelljammer. We were thumbing through the mechanics that were there and doing a gut check on how they work, and so that spurred us to create the document here, Spelljammer Combat and Exploration. And this is currently on the DMsGuild. You can find, if you're interested, you can check it out. There's an extensive free preview and about 120 assets in a download file that you get with it. But yeah, check it out here. There's a 25% off coupon here if you click that link. But here's the cover that we painted. And here's the actual document itself. It's 107 pages. The first 82 pages are mechanics for stuff in space, combat, wild sea, astral space, all that cool stuff. The last 25 pages is a conversion guide for Light as Araxis, showing how to use all the mechanics in this book in the Light as Araxis adventure, how that would change how the Spelljammer campaigns would run, so that you can take that and then extract that information and the lessons that are inside of here for you to use in your own campaign. And you're always welcome to reach out to me on my Discord, my Patreon, or just in the comments down below. So you are most welcome here, and I appreciate you. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to build some Mega-Kaiju. What up, big guy? These damsel flies are 150 foot long ship, no, 100 foot long ships. Oops. Where'd you go? Here. This big boy is really, really, really big. It's like a 2,000 foot long worm. It's massive. So obviously you can eat this entire spelljamming ship in one bite. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the information that we have in here about mega scale creatures and structures. And you can check this out in the free preview, or if you just want to pick it up to support the effort, God bless you. It's here on page 62, so if you pick it up, you can get this stuff as well. It has scaling hit points, depending on the size of the creature that you have, and the composition of the material. A hollow refers to things like creatures and vessels. Like vessels are like warfare themed walls, so they scale up in size. They have a lot more hit points. But if it were to be scaled down to to the 5 foot scale, it'd basically be like a warforged, easily torn apart. Bits can get strewn everywhere. So hollow doesn't have a lot of damage. However, like a solid material, like heavy solid material, like a 5 foot block of stone or say iron, for instance, would have about 2,000 hit points per 5 foot square of space that it occupies. Three-dimensional cube. A light material would be like wood, like a thick tree, for instance. A 5 foot space of a 5 foot thick tree would have about 1,000 hit points per 5 foot space for you to hack your way through. And then composite material is like a mix in between, like bone, chitin, or like a mix of both stone and wood. It could be it could be porous material, like bristly lava, for instance, like that really clunky, like coral. That would be a good example of a composite material. And then you have hybrids. Hybrid material is not as dense as just solid material, but it's also not as weak as a hollow creature, like just a normal squishy creature. Like for instance, a huge nautiloid with a thick shell on it, or like a giant 2,000 mile wide turtle, for instance, that your planet is on the back of. That would be considered a hybrid. At 200 miles, it would be at the 1,000 mile scale. So like it would have 100 million hit points to be able to to outright just kill a 2,000 mile turtle. It would be actually 2,000 miles would be a 2x2 space. It would have 200 million hit points. It's like you're not just gonna one shot with a bow. This is like you're gonna have to throw a dark star at it, or like a whole another planet to whack it in its head for you to be able to potentially hurt it. So that's the kind of scale that we're working at here. And when we're talking about huge sized creatures, it's not so much that they hit you and deal damage. It depends on how big you are. If you're big enough to actually fight toe to toe with a massive scale creature, then yeah, you're going to be swinging, hitting, and dealing damage to each other. But at smaller scales, it's more like you're falling. If a 500-foot giant slaps you with the back of its hand to knock you away from it, that's kind of like somebody smacking a fly. It's not that I'm punching you. It's that I'm going to smash you and you're going to take collision damage, which for creatures is called falling. So basically, you're going to take falling damage from this thing swatting you out of the sky. And at the 5 foot scale with individual creatures, we know that their maximum speed of basically like terminal speed for falling for creatures that are our size, or 50 feet or less, is 200 feet, and you take D6 damage per 10 feet, which at the 50 foot scale, that would convert into 5d6 damage per 50 feet. And you'd be able to take up to 4 of those. So that's the kind of damage that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with larger size scale, like a ship, for instance, like that damselfly that we showed up above, if it were to crash into a planet, it would take, if it flew at least 2,000 feet, which at the 500-foot scale, that would be 4 squares, which is definitely enough for free falling a couple miles through atmosphere before you impact in the side of a mountain. You would be taking up to 5d6 damage per 500 feet at the times 10 scale, because hollow creatures like a human, again, we use hollow damage. So 10 feet for a 5 foot space, that's like your typical soldier, right? So 5 foot scale, there you go. It doesn't have any kind of multiplier, but like a dragonfly ship, or like that damselfly that we saw earlier, it's a 100 foot ship. So it would have the hit points that it has up above. It's 200 hit points. It's basically 10 hit points per every 5 feet of space. So 100 feet of space is 200 hit points. So it would have 200 hit points, and it would deal to itself 20d6 times 10 damage if it were to smash into the side of a planet, like if it were just to crash land. A pilot can make a saving throw for half damage to lessen the impact of the ship. But then now we're talking about, like for instance, if you had a 1 mile size kaiju, and you are a character that's up to 50 feet in size, if that kaiju were to punch you, it wouldn't be punching you in attack roll. It would just basically be waving its arm through your space, and you would take falling damage as a result of it basically passing through and forcing you to have collision. If you're just free falling as a character, you're not going to get a saving throw to avoid it. But if you're a pilot, then you'll be able to make a saving throw to lessen that damage. So, and monks, if you have a monk pilot, you'll be able to use slow fall to potentially take no damage from it. So that's something to keep an eye on. So what we're going to do is we're going to build out a sample of a kaiju. So here we have the Rock of Brawl. It's pretty freaking amazing here. Give me a hot second here. I'm going to flip this open. Here and here and here. Okay, so this is pretty cool. Check this out. The Rock of Brawl. This is the official pixel file that we got off of the Spelljammer Adventures in Space from Wizards of the Coast. I purchased it and I downloaded this map off of it. Now check this out. Obviously we've shrank down the scale a lot. It's a really big map. It's really, really nice. But if you check this out here, feet, 0 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, 500 feet. This is a 1,000 feet scale here from 0 to 1,000. And so 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000. So if we have a 500 foot square, this bar is exactly 2 squares wide. So we know that this is accurate scaling for the Rock of Brawl. So if we scale out, we can look at this and we can see that the Rock of Brawl is in the 50-foot scale. At the 500-foot scale, it occupies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares tall or wide, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's 12 by 7. So it actually occupies a 12 by 12 space. Because like in D&D, a horse is like 8 feet long, but it's only like 3 feet wide. So it occupies a 10-foot space because it's footprint. So this is at the 500-foot scale. This is 12 squares, so that makes it 1.2 miles long and about 3,500 feet wide. So this is a really, really big structure. And interesting is the underside of it is all farmland. Also, if you were to pick up the Spelljammer, one of the combat exploration that I have on DMsGuild, I built out a 500-foot scale or map for the Imperial Citadel that's at the where the Xeraxian elves are at. And I also, you won't get this anywhere else, I also provided an underside of it. So look at this and look at this. That's a whole lot of farmland down there to take care of oxygen and food supplies for the residents. Same thing for the Xeraxian elves. We put a whole bunch of force down here for them to be able to have abundant food and air for them to be able to live on this otherwise lifeless rock. So let's have a kaiju come and graze. This is Star Kraken, the Mega-Kaiju. You can see that he occupies a 3x3 space at the 500-foot scale. He would realistically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 come over here and just start eating crops. Here's a fun thing to look at. So the hit points that we have for stuff, like we know that if it's heavy stone and we're looking at the Rock of Brawl at the 500-foot scale, each one of those squares, this is roughly this cube of rock is 200,000 hit points. Get out of here, scallywag. Here and here. Where was I? Yeah, each 500-foot square has 10,000 hit points, right? So, but the kaiju doesn't want to eat a cube of rock. All the kaiju wants to do is eat crops. So if it wants to eat all of the crops on here, that would be considered a hollow because it's not a solid object. It's just like reeds and like wheat and corn and grapes and taters, precious. So it's only going to have 1,000 hit points per 500-foot space. And the Kaiju is 500. It's 1,500 feet in size because each one of these squares is 500 feet. So this is a 3x3 space at the 500-foot scale. I'm just walking you guys through the process so that we can start doing the math and start putting stuff down on a piece of paper. So let's start doing that because I need to organize this. Because if I'm going to build a document out of this and build like a formal presentation out of this, I need to make sure I have all my ducks in a row. So let's see. Rock of Brawl, 500-foot space, material, HP. So rock, 10,000. Crops, 1,000. Kaiju, 1,500 feet equals 500-foot scale, 3x3. It takes a little math, which is why I want to make a document out of it. I'll put it on my Patreon. It's super easy, so it'll be easy for you guys just to look at it. Obviously, it's going to be really difficult for your characters to run with a sword and kill this thing, so we're going to provide some fun options for you guys to be able to actually fight it, Kaiju style. So let's see. Objects in the void. There we go. Object size and hit points. So the Kaiju, this massive creature, it could be considered a hollow object because it's a living creature. But we also have the caveat that a hybrid can be a creature with an unnaturally thick skin. And considering that we're looking at scaling, we don't have a damage reduction for this creature or a damage threshold to worry about. It's so massive that like 10 hit point threshold is completely meaningless. So instead we ramp the hit points. So that's why we have the option between hollow, hybrid, and solid objects, so that you have the ability to integrate that damage reduction or damage threshold idea by, instead of reducing the damage that you deal, which you would need at the 5-foot versus 5-foot scale, instead we just ramp the damage. So the hybrid itself, the hybrid hit points at the 500-foot scale, it have 10,000 hit points per 500-foot square. So like you can see down here, a 200-foot asteroid occupying a 4x4 space, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. A 3-mile tall tree community occupying a 3x3 space at the 1-mile scale. Made of wood, a light material, 3x3 space, 10 million, 1 million miles. Has up to 1 million miles is 1 million hit points per mile. And it's a 3x3 space, so it's a 3x3 miles. So that means it occupies a 3x3 space at the 1-mile scale. It has 3 million hit points. So similarly, at the hybrid size, at the 500-foot scale, it occupies a 3x3 space at the 500-foot scale. It's a hybrid. It has 30,000 hit points. That's a lot of Mai Tai. So Kaiju, 500-foot scale. That's what we should do. 500-foot scale. 500 scale, 3x3. Equals 10,000. Rock material. Oops, I got that wrong. It's 200,000. Well, crops only have 1,000. That makes sense because you're going through an entire cube of stone versus just a shear of crops. So that jives. That makes a lot of sense. And let's put some added here. 10,000 per equals 30,000 hit points. That sounds intimidating, doesn't it? It's made out of a composite material, chitin and flesh. So that would be a hybrid material. Hybrid materials generally have an armor class of 15. Hey, timely timer. Let's keep it going. And we don't need a ton of statistics for this stuff. Move equals 5 squares up to 1,000 miles per square. That's the maximum speed that it can move at spell jamming speeds. Okay, so spell jamming, right? Hold on real quick. Just so as you knows. Let's go to the combat chapter here real quick. Combat chapter. Here we go. Okay, so let's look at there. Let's look at scale of movement, right? If a spell jamming helmet, and it can move 100 million miles per day, that means it's 10 million miles for roughly every 2 hours, which is roughly 5 million miles per hour or 1 million miles per 10 minutes. We're rounding down to the easiest variables here to keep it from being weird math. It's fantasy, you know. Circles are squares. There's no Euclidean here. We're just eyeballing stuff for easiness. So 100 million miles per day equals 10 million miles per 2 hours, which divide 120 minutes roughly divided by 10 is roughly a million miles every 10 minutes, which means roughly 100,000 miles every minute, which means typically uninterrupted, you're going to be able to move 10,000 miles per round. If we break that down into a grid, we could then have a grid of 1,000 mile squares. And you would be able to move up to 10 squares at the 1,000 mile scale, or 1 square at the 10,000 mile scale. So if you're in combat, you're going to want to operate at 1,000 miles or less so that you can be granular. And then we can further scale down. It goes from 1,000 mile squares to 100 mile squares to 10 mile squares to 1 mile squares. We'll round it off and call a tenth of that 500 feet, then 50 feet, then 5 feet. This is the scales of magnitude that we can operate at. If you're capable of spell jamming speeds, and like a mega space, like a star Kraken, the Mega-Kaiju should be able to move at spell jamming speed. Otherwise, why would it even exist? It'd never get to another planet. So 100 million miles per day means it can traverse 10 squares at the 1,000 mile scale. But the Rock of Brawl is only a 500-foot structure. So it has to slow down. If it stayed at the 1,000 mile square, it'd never be able to get a dinner because it would zip by here so fast, it wouldn't have time to even grab an apple off of a tree, or an apple tree, or an orchard. So it has to slow down to be able to engage with the space that it's on. And once it actually lands on the asteroid, it's technically not moving at all. But it also does its own natural scale is 500 feet. So its natural movement scale is 500-foot squares. So it could move slower, but it's basically it's standing still. If it's only moving 50-foot squares, that means like one round it's moving one square, right? Like if it only wants to move at the 50-foot scale, if it's being like super careful, it could like tiptoe and quietly creep through its daughter's room to give her a kiss on the head goodnight. It's going to move at the 50-foot scale. So like 10 steps at the 50-foot space, moving nice and slow. But in normal pedestrian life, this thing's going to truck around like one. Typically, what we do is we have things move 5 squares. I know that normal characters in D&D move 6 squares because that converts into 3 miles per hour, which is a typical walking speed. That's why it's 6 squares, 30 feet per round. But you can also dash. And dash doubles your movement speed. You have your move speed, and then you have your action, or rogues have their bonus action, cunning action, to dash. So if you can move and dash, and that's all you're doing, that's 10 squares. And what does that mean? It curves right into our normal scale. So the math is working out on movement. This Mega-Kaiju can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. Yeah, it would stop at 5, and then it could like do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it could do a full lap around basically all of the fields. It could roam around all of the fields basically in one round. And as it's trampling across all of the plants, it's got all these tentacles, so it can like grab up all the stuff, you know, and put it in its gullet as it's marching along. It's got 4 of these like whip-like tentacles that it can tromp around on. I'm just using a cosmic horror token that's available in the Spelljammer Combat Exploration book, but we scaled it up here for the combat map, so I didn't have to spend time making a new type of kaiju like Star Kraken, the Mega-Kaiju. I didn't want to take time to make a Kraken Kaiju when this one's perfectly fine. But so this thing, it's at the 500 foot scale, right? So let's go back down to our, let's see, our encounter size, creature size, 500 foot scale. If it's going to tromp around a up to 500 feet, up to a mile. So 500 foot scale times 3. This thing could be doing basically times, basically 300 times. Okay, so things that are up to 500 feet do times 100 damage when they impact. Things that are up to 1 mile, which would include our space kaiju, would do basically d6 times 1,000 damage per 4 miles of movement that it's free falling. That's not going to happen. So, but what we can also do is we can use this as a rough damage indication of like what kind of damage would it be able to do to the field, and it has basically a base 1,000 damage that it can deal. So if it's tromping around, each of these squares of the fields can take like a 500 foot square, of field, as we looked at, as a hollow, soft object like reeds and corn and stuff like that. It's only going to be able to take basically 1,000 hit points. So any kind of tromping that this kaiju does is going to basically do at least 1,000 points of damage to every area that it hits, which is sufficient to clear out 1 square. So if it moves into this space, oops, let's get rid of that. Its damage is 1,000 miles, is 1,000 hit points. So it can move into this space here, and it could target this square, and it could target this square with 1 tentacle, 2 tentacles. It can just basically rake across the field and pull it all into its gullet. Here's its gullet. So how many squares of space do we have here? Because that's basically how many rounds that this thing's going to spend time eating your shit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So this thing basically in 30 rounds, or in 3 minutes, it can tromp around and eat all of the vegetation that's on the Rocka Brawl. If we go back to the Citadel of Light, it has basically 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at it this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. This has basically 22 squares worth of vegetation. So this kaiju can clear out the Citadel, the Imperial Citadel, in 22 rounds, or basically in 2.5 minutes. How long would we have to fight this thing if we saw it coming in? Let's go check our visibility tables. This thing is it's more than 500 feet. It's up to a mile in size. So if we're using, if we have an orrery station that is sweeping, somebody's basically here. For those that don't know, here we go. An orrery station is a means of get out of here, scallywag. The orrery station, you take one of those orreries that they presented in Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. It's a little handheld device that will create a hologrammatic projection of the major planets, the planetary objects that are in the system. Basically anything that's 10 miles or larger, you can see at any range throughout the system. If you plug it into an orrery station, which is like a command station on board a ship, or inside of a community, or in a structure of some sort, the orrery then gets amplified so it can notice a much wider range and much smaller objects as well. So when we're looking at these visibility tables, there's something called a scan check. And the scanning check refers to using one of these orrery stations to be scrying through space by peering into the orrery mechanics. So it's basically like a magic pool, or like a crystal ball that's designed specifically to amplify through space to be able to see these things. So, like if you're a 5 foot, like if you're a medium-sized creature, right, 5 foot scale, like a human, the orrery would be able to notice you up to 1,000 miles away, but it would be a DC 28 to do so. If you're within 1 mile, you could be noticed with the naked eye, DC 22. And if you're using an orrery at this point, somewhere inside of this range, the DC gets easier from 28, it drops to 22 with the orrery station. If you're within 1,000 miles, if you're further away, it'd be at disadvantage if you're specifically looking for it. So DC 28, advantage if you're within that range, disadvantage if you're beyond that range. But something that is up to 1 mile in size, like our Mega-Kaiju here, it could be seen 1,000,000 miles away, which means that you would have two, like if a lookout that's using an orrery station to look for threats that are incoming to the Rock of Brawl or the Citadel of Light, like things like typically ships, for instance, a single ship, like a fighter craft, like one of the small little fighter crafts. Here, I'll show you a small little fighter craft. So these are vessels. Each of these squares is 50 feet. So like a nautiloid is 200 feet long. So at the 4x4 scale at 50 feet, there you go. A night spider at the 4x4, it's 200 feet. So at the 50-foot scale, it's a 4x4 craft. Similarly, star moths, same size. Squid ships are 250 feet long. So at the 50-foot scale, they're 5x5. But there's fighter craft, the biggest of which is an elven warbird. It is 50 feet in size. So at the 5-foot scale that you see depicted here, it occupies a 10x10 space. Over here we have an Yogi Spiderling. It's a 40-foot vessel, so it occupies an 8x8 space. But both of these would easily fit inside of one 50-foot space, right? So that's the kind of that's the idea behind that. And then we have Cuttlefish, which is a fighter craft for Illithid. Goblin arrows are classic from 1991, as well as landing skiffs. This one has a ballista as well as a harpoon flinger and its helm. So we have all these different ships that we're talking about here. And so let's go back down to here. So if you're a single fighter craft coming towards the Rock of Brawl, we would be able to see you within 10,000 miles. You're only a round away. Like, you're almost already on top of us. If they rolled really, really well, when you make a check, you're going to roll 2 dice at all times. If things that are further away are going to be at disadvantage. Things that are closer are going to be at advantage. So you roll 2 dice, and if they happened to see, if they rolled on disadvantage of 25 or better, then they would be able to see up to 100 million miles, up to 100,000 miles away, which would give them basically a 1-minute notice at this little fighter craft that's coming in. A 500-foot scale, you'd see it at 100,000 miles, so you'd have 10 minutes before it arrived, which is plenty of time to alert your crew via messenger amplifier to intercept course to catch up with you. And they're all going to have their own. They're all going to have their own orrery stations, so they're doing sweeps as well. So it's unlikely that a ship is going to get through the perimeter of patrol ships that are looking for small-scale craft and creatures, and then the orreries that are amplifying on the Rock of Brawl or the Imperial Citadel to be able to see larger threats that are further away. Our Kaiju is 1,500 feet. So that is larger than the 500-foot scale. It's within, a mile is a 10x10 space at the 500-foot scale. So we're going to be able to see it 1,000,000 miles away. Like I saw it coming 1,000,000 miles away. I love that. So that means, let's see, 1 round, 1 minute, 10 minutes. So yeah, we've got 10 minutes. 1 round, minute, 10 minutes. Yeah, we'll have 10 minutes notification that there's a Kaiju coming in. The DC is only a 19. With disadvantage, if we also rolled above a 19, we'll see it at 10 million miles, which would be 1 round, 1 minute, 10 minutes. It'd be 2 hours. So if we happen to, and I mean, if you have like 6 or 7 people that are working orreries, eventually one of them is going to be able to see that. You've basically got 2 hours for it to be noticed. So you can assume that somewhere between the extreme range and the good range, it's going to get spotted before it gets to you. So we can assume that you're probably going to have maybe like an hour before that Kaiju is going to arrive, which is tons of time for you to get everybody up and running. So you'll have a 1 hour notification, which gives you the chance to even take a short rest before that Kaiju arrives and you need to engage with it in combat. So it's going to do 1,000 damage whenever it sweeps a limb. And so let's put that down. Move equals 5 foot squares at 1,000 miles per square. Let's see. Up to 1 mile equals 1,000 HP damage. If it was falling, it'd be D6 times 1,000 damage, up to 20 D6 times 1,000 damage. It has 30,000 hit points. 20 D6 is 120 times 1,000. So if it were to free fall 20 miles and hit a planet, it could potentially die just like anyone else. It would be a massive crash landing. There you go. Atmosphere is typically thick enough that you could potentially fall that way. The only problem is that space kaiju can fly, and it's going to retain its own gravity plane until it runs into an object that's larger than itself. So if it was blinded and just blindly ran away, and like it went at spell jamming speed 10,000 miles per round, and it collided with a planet, then yes, it would take 20 D6 times 1,000 damage and potentially splat itself, because it only has 30,000 hit points. So 20 D6 is 120 times 1,000, 120,000. 120,000. Basically, half of that damage would be 60,000. It could make a saving throw to have the damage. Chances are it would kill itself. If it just blind ran full long in like space warped into a planet, almost anything is going to be dead, which is intentional. Like a spell jam, like you free falling, takes 20 D6 damage. Most mortal creatures don't have 120 hit points. If you are a spell jamming ship, you would do 20 D6 times 10 damage, which would be up to 1,200 damage. And like the dragonfly we're looking at only had 200. So if you're flying 1,000 miles per round and you ram into the side of a planet, then yeah, your ship's gonna get fucked. And like it's like the damage scales up proportionally for everybody. If you just headlong into an object, you're basically killing yourself, which is true. Jump off a building, you die. So far, all this math is working out fantastic. So it's not flying, it's not falling anywhere. It's just concussion damage that this thing does. Like you could argue that like when you stomp on an ant, for instance, at the 5-foot scale, you're not falling. You're probably doing like 8 points of damage to that ant just by passively walking on it. That would deal 1 point of damage, and that would be enough to kill. Like if you stepped on a rat, you could potentially kill it. A bug would definitely die. So if it's so small that it only occupies like half a foot or smaller in space, like if it's only this big, if you step on it, put your full weight on it, chances are you're going to break it. This is kind of that same principle. It's going to do 1,000 points of damage minimum. Now, if you were to run up and punch it and you wanted to fight it, it's not going to attack you, because it's so massive in scale that it just automatically damages the area that you occupy. But you can't take 1,000 points of damage from falling. You can only take 20 D6 times 10 damage. So if you get casually hit and slapped out of the way by one of the tentacles on this thing, that's effectively the same as you falling and hitting that tentacle at maximum speed. If you are adjacent to it or occupying its space, you're going to basically be struck as though you fell 500 feet. And since a human has a maximum impact of 200 feet, you or in a fighter craft, 200 foot maximum impact, 20 d6 damage. If you were in that dragonfly ship or another ship that's less than 500 feet in size but larger than 50 feet, it would be it's d6 times 10 for every 100 feet that you fall, up to 2,000 feet. So if you're inside of or adjacent to this creature, it's not going to be able to do more than 500 feet worth of impact damage to you, which means that we're looking at 500 foot scale. Thank you, timely timer. Let's see. 500 feet. 500 feet for a ship. It'd be 5d6 times 10 damage. So you could do up to... So this thing could... If it swats you, it could do 300 points of damage. You get a saving throw, unless your pilot's stunned or surprised somehow. You'll get your reaction, so you can make a saving throw to brace to roll up the punch, as it were. So you'll probably take about 75 damage, which you can actually take a number of swats from. The only problem is the amount of damage that you're going to deal back to this kaiju. It's got 30,000 hit points. Let's assume that's going to run away after it's lost 10,000 hit points. So if we're looking at, like, say here on Light of Xeraxis, it has these trebuchet towers. And let's go look at our book here. This isn't... I'm going to build a formal presentation for this for next week. I'm not going to add all of this shit in. I'm going to streamline all of this so that you can easily... So that the information is easily processed. But this is a trebuchet tower. It occupies a 50-foot square. 3 trebuchets. A trebuchet does d8 times 10 damage. This whole trebuchet tower, if it fires in a coordinated attack, it does 3d8 times 10 damage, which is going to be roughly 100 hit points. It's 3d8 is like, what, max of 24, so it's probably going to be like around 12, maybe 13 damage. Yeah, it'd be 13 damage times 10, 130. But we could assume bad rolls. Let's wind it down to, say, 100 hit points. And so if we were to look here, there's a total of 16 trebuchet on this side, and there's also 16 trebuchet towers on this side. So whichever side of the citadel the kaiju is at is going to basically take, assuming that these things hit, it would be 15 times 100, or roughly 1,500 damage that this would be able to deal. So that's assuming that everything's hitting. So if it's now stomping around on the underside, eating food, as it's stomping around like this, these trebuchets are taking shots at it. And so the number of trebuchet here, each of them would do about 1,500 damage in a full volley. So it could potentially do 10 volleys over the course of a minute. This thing would be able to come in here and basically scoop up half of this before it took like 15,000 damage from ongoing trebuchet hits. So it'll be able to come through and chew up a bite. Like, it could come through, it could eat this, and then take off in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. It'll just take enough damage that it'll be like, oof, this is starting to bother me, and it's going to fly away. And it might come back tomorrow and eat another 2,000 square foot chunk of vegetation, because it's going to take its long rest, it's going to heal up, and it's going to come back, and it's going to just keep chewing on this, leave and chew on it. So you're going to need to come up with a solution to keep it away from you. You have to do enough damage that it scares it away. It can take the trebuchet hits, so you're going to need fighter ships. We're going to have to send fighter ships in to fight this thing. A squadron, and we have the mechanics for squadron in this book here. But what I really want to zoom in on, and like literally zoom in on here, is that if it has 30,000 hit points, yeah, these trebuchets might soften it up until it comes through and smashes the trebuchets, because it can smash them in one hit, automatically destroys them. So you're going to run out. How frequently are you going to... Well, I screwed around with my surface here. Nope, everything's good. How long are these trebuchets going to last if the thing decides to come through and smash the things that are hurting it? It's going to destroy all those, and this is going to eat everything, and it'll be gone. 1 round smash, 2 round smash, 3 round smash, 4 round smash, 5 round smash. It's almost out of ammo. It can't do damage anymore. So it's not going to do 15,000 damage. It's going to do more like 5,000 damage. And it's going to wreck this place. If you can keep it at bay at long range, if you can knock it out before it can actually get onto the citadel, then yeah. But it can move 1,000 miles per round, 10,000 miles per round. So, and trebuchet only have a 1 mile range. So it's going to close distance before the trebuchet can be effective, and it's going to stop nomming on stuff. This is a high risk, so you need to send out ships to intercept it. The ships, a 500-foot square of ship squadrons. Let's go look at a squadron. Like an armada, like this is a 500-foot square, and these ships acting in formation are going to be able to do 8d6 times 10 damage, which is about 500 damage. So it's going to take a lot of round, like that's per round basically. So it's going to have to, it can basically do 500 points of damage per round on a really 48. That's 500. Yeah, it's only going to be able to actually do 250 per squadron per round. And if there's only 16 ships, no, there's 32. So that's 8 times 250. That's 2,000 damage. These ships can do 2,000 damage per round. So between the trebuchets and the squadron of ships, it can potentially chase off the kaiju. But again, every time the kaiju whips its tentacles around it to shoo away the fog of gnats that are attacking it, it's going to shoo these all away. And every time it hits, it's going to basically do about 1,000. It's going to do up to like 300 points of damage, and these ships only have 400. So it's going to knock some of them out every turn. So you're going to be running out of ships quickly. It's decent because you can harass the thing from up to a mile away. So you've got a cloud of ships that are harassing it. You've got the trebuchet towers that are harassing it. But it could potentially wave off and ward out all these things. That's still a risk. So we need another solution. You can't... kaiju often have weak spots, and if we zoom in here, we can see that this kaiju, it has all of these eyes, and these eyes are roughly 50 feet in size. So these things basically would have about 100 hit points per eye. You can't just shoot it with a ballista because there's a rule about ballistas and siege weapons being able to attack objects that are smaller than 50 feet. They can't have any kind of cover. And it'd be safe to say that these kaiju, these eyes would have cover. It's an illustration, but you can imagine like these ridges or that set-in that has armoring, like all this carapace around it is armored. So it can't be shot with ballista bolts unless you actually land your ship on the eye, point down and chunk, shoot ballistas right into its eye at point-blank range. You're not going to get that close because if your ship flies up and lands on its face, it's going to swat you out of the way and your whole crew's probably dead. So you smash that ship, yeah, your whole crew's gone. So it's really risky to land on the face of this thing to start dropping ballista bolts. You're really big. What you want to do is take a fighter craft or a little group of heroes to have them basically parachute in or on like one of these... where was it? Like take one of these little spiderlings, for instance, or you could take a goblin arrow here and use this razor edge. These things have sharpened razor blades for wings, right? So you could fly that into and start cutting out the eye. And if you cut out enough eyes, it's going to be like, this sucks, I am leaving. So all you really have to do is 100 hit points of damage per eye, but you have to get close enough. And harpoon flingers only have a 150-foot range or a long range. I mean, you could just have it fire off blankly into the void for like miles, hundreds of miles potentially. But at that range, you're just going to move. You're not going to get hit by it. So you can't be a mile away. You have to be up close and personal so you don't have disadvantage, which means that your harpoon flingers, the little like from Descent into Avernus, the Infernal War Machines had harpoon flingers on them, and they only do 2d8 damage. So the this razor blade here, it does 3d8 damage, like each of these razors, and if it flies in fast as a ram attack, it'll do 6d8 damage. So it could potentially do like say 30 damage and then 8. So it's not easy. Like the scale of weapon has to be small enough to be able to hit the target. But it still has 100 hit points, and it would have damage reduction because its size is so small that it fits within the damage threshold damage reduction. We use damage reduction in the system. And the Ice Skiing would have a damage reduction of 10. So every time you hit with your harpoon flinger, which does 2d8 damage, it'd then be minus 10. Chances are your harpoon flinger is just kind of like it's poking it in the eye. It doesn't like it, but it isn't necessarily doing damage. When you get the razor in there and it does 3d8 damage, that's going to overcome the resistance, but it has 100 hit points. And again, you're not going to stay there. It's going to flick you out of the way. And then you're going to take 20d6 damage to your ship and your crew for the falling impact damage. You can save for half, but it's going to screw you up. So you're going to get flicked away. So you're going to need to have dozens of these little ships swarming around its eyes like flies trying to sting a bull's eyes out. That's the kind of scenario that we're dealing with. But your team can do that. You can have your, like, say a 10th level team would have enough hit points to be able to survive falling damage like that. And so you would have an opportunity to jump in and start carving at its eye, using up your resources to heal, create temporary hit points, to dodge and teleport attacks that are coming in, so that you have enough time to move from eye to eye. If you can take out 4 eyes, once it loses 3 eyes, it's going to be like, yeah, I'm out of here. So your team actually only needs to do 300 points of damage across that area, and it could take your team like 3 or 4 rounds, each time taking that falling damage while it happens. You may or may not be able to survive it. And if you track progress, you can pick up this map and this token in the supplement. But that's basically the scaling that we're looking at. So let's peel this apart here. Move AC 5 squares up to 1 mile equals 1,000 damage. Let's go with Tromp. Tromping. That's its passive of this tromping around in the 500-foot scale. And then it has tentacles equals, it's 2 squares, so that means it's going to be D4, D6, D6, 1d6 times 1,000 hit points, bludgeon, or collision damage, vessels equals 5d6 times 10 per 500 foot square. Fighter crafts are called craft, plus PC equals 5d6 times 10 per 50 foot square equals 20d6 times 10 per 200 foot. So your character is going to take 20d, sorry, not times 10. It's d6 per 10 feet equals 5d6 per 50 feet square. Max 200 feet equals 20d6, just like you know D&D to be. It all works out perfectly fine. It's d6 per 100 feet equals 5d6 times 10 per 500 feet max 2,000 feet equals 20d6 times 10. There. So we have our get out of here. We have our scaling. We know that the creature itself has 30,000 hit points. Has an armor class of 15. Super easy to hit. When it tromps around on an object, it's going to automatically do 1,000 points of damage. 1,000 HP per square. .500 to 1,000 miles. In scale. Deal 1,000 hit points damage per 500 foot square. Trumped. Feeding deals 1,000 hit points damage per 500 feet square per round. Action feeding. Action. Tentacle whip. Hey, look, it's a claw bite. How about that? Action. That's its bite. Feeding. Let's call it grazing. That sounds fun. Shift at will. Let's see. What's other fun stuff? Thundering Bellow equals all within 1 mile. Con save or stunned. Nah, stun conditions suck. No one likes to be stunned. All within 1 mile. Let's see. Disadvantage on all d20s for 1. Con save DC 19 to end effect. end of your turn, you can make... Thank you, time the timer. What is going on with you? Stop. Good, still going. Let's see. All within 1 mile, disadvantage on all d20s. Lasts up to 1 minute. At the end of your turn, you can make con save DC 19 to end the effect. Period. And that saving throw, of course, is at disadvantage. True sight up to 10,000 miles away. Wild space senses equals acts can scan telepathically as an Ori scan. If your mind can't be read, you are invisible. You are considered hiding from this ability. Spell jamming speed equals 100 million miles per day. 1,000 mile scale maximum. 1,000 mile square. Tactical. There. All right, let's save this. Because that is, let's see, we'll call this Star Kraken. The Mega-Kaiju. Super simple. Doesn't take a lot of statistics. It has a weak spot that your team can target. It has a high risk threat. It has a passive, the Citadel and the Rock of Brawl. It has the passive ballista trebuchet towers, which can be used. A character using the command mechanics can command these trebuchet towers like on a walkie-talkie, like a sending stone. Fire barrage at its nozzle here, that sort of thing. So you can call shots with it like that to deal damage as an action of you commanding, and then they'll start reloading the weapons and let you know when it's ready for another volley. And Star Kraken, the Mega-Kaiju. We know how much damage that the fields can take and the rock can take. It took a while for us to be able to walk through the mechanics. An hour, in fact. It took an hour for me to walk through the entire process of how all this stuff is built. But what I get to do is make a little, just like a really small condensed, summary, a stat block, if you would, of Mega-Kaiju, where it's all this stuff. The cosmic horror stuff. Let's do what we say. Vulnerability. Go for the eyes. Go for the eyes. 4 eyes. Each 50 feet in size. AC 20. Damage reduction 10. HP 100 each. Has cover against siege weapons when three eyes are, when 3 or more eyes are destroyed, the Star Kraken Mega-Kaiju stuff. Vulnerability. Traits. Traits. Bonus action. Vulnerability. When 3 or more eyes are destroyed, the Star Kraken will teleport or plane shift away. The eyes regenerate when it finishes a long rest. There. Huge threat, decent vulnerability, high risk. This is a third tier. This is a third tier challenge. Like level, what are the tiers? 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 17, and then 17 to 20. This would definitely fit in the 10 to 17 range. That third tier sweet spot. That's yeah, because you're gonna have enough hit points around that point that you can survive getting swatted a few times. The piloting helps a lot because the being able to use your piloting check to make a saving throw to have the SWAT damage that you're gonna take. If you're in a fighter ship or on in a vessel taking shots at the thing, ideally you're on a fighter craft or a small vessel that's going to be able to get close enough to the eye to drop off onto its face and start blapping at them like the second How to Tame a Dragon or How to Tame Your Dragon. God, I haven't seen that movie in a while. I love that show. But it's the same thing. Like when what's his name? Gronk is like taking his hammer and he's blatting the the dragon in the eyes. It's the exact same thing as that, just like picturesque. So yeah, that's the whole process. I'm going to figure out between now and Saturday afternoon, I'm going to figure out a way to condense this down into like maybe a 10-minute video to be able to feed this stuff and to provide page references for the things that you can do with it. And yeah, and then we'll make a PDF out of it and we'll post it on my Patreon for folks. So that's that. Let's just switch gears here. Then I'm gonna hit save for the Rock of Brawl scaled 500 foot. I love how everything that Wizards produced fits perfectly into the scaling mechanic stuff that we have in this book. But they didn't do anything with it. It's like they knew but didn't have the time to do anything with it. It's just I love that. So one of the things I absolutely love is Vokath's base. This is the mega crab that we've been doing artwork for. So now that we've got our kaiju stuff out of our system, I still have an hour. About what is it, 8:30? I've got an hour left, so we can continue working on our mega crab. So this is a 500 foot scale. For those that know the why is my pen disabled? Thank you. And thank you. I might have to replace this thing in a couple months. At this rate, it feels like it's starting to fall apart. But for those that know, back on track. For those that knows, this is Vokath's base from Light as Araxis. It's in the third part. Your team journeys to Doom Space to meet with the owners of all these ships. They're warlords of these different tribal clans that are basically getting being supplied by a mercane named Vokath. He's providing them with ships in exchange for like mineral rights and stuff like that to their planets or whatever. And so they're all gathered here, and we're using this as a frame of reference for the fleet mechanics that we have in our book. And so you can, like we showed earlier, you can group up a number of ships into a 500-foot square and have them attack as though they were a single entity. And the scaling works out. Just check out the combat chapter of my book. And so you're here to get all of these warlords with their ships on board to help you go fight the Star Elves back at the Imperial Citadel. The way that we have this is an alternate combat encounter that we provide. The rules as written. You're in this arena and you're fighting monsters to prove to these warlords that you've got personal courage, that you're somebody that's courageous and heroic enough that it's worth following because you'll be able to overcome the elves, and then you'll owe them a solid IOU, right? So you can help them, which helps propel more adventures after 8th level. So the way that it's written is after you fight in the arena, you can go around and you can talk to the different warlords in these factions, and with successful social pillar checks like negotiation, intimidation, or deception, if they pass, then they'll be on board and help you. If you fail, you have to give them magic items, wealth, or promises to help them after the fact. And if you're successful, then however many you can get on board with you depends the size of the fleet that you have to go attack with. You could have up to there's 6 factions. You could have up to 6. Yeah, you could have up to 6 squadrons flying with you. So the way that we build it is rules as the adventure is written. While you're doing this, the Star Elves show up, bully everyone there, steal stuff that they want, and then basically laugh and take a hike, right? So the way that the adventure is written is you're powerless to stop this. At best, you can hide the most important things and convince them that they're not here. Basically, like hiding somebody in a locker. It's like, yeah, the kid you want to pick on isn't around. Why don't you just like wing off out of here? But isn't it more satisfying to beat up bullies and to teach them what's what? Like everyone wants to stand. No one wants to get bullied as part of their heroic fantasy. I think that's one of the biggest failings of this adventure. So it's easily fixed. With the fleet mechanics that we have, we can instead have all the warlords and you, since we know we're going to have minutes of notification before they get here, because we looked at the Ori stuff earlier. We know that there's going to be like 10 minutes before they get here. Plenty of time for people to juice up their ships and bounce out of here. And so you can have your fleet form up around the battle station, and Vokath, you can see all these crystals that are hanging out underneath here. The way that we express this is it's a battle station that's unfolding with these massive legs underneath it and these massive claws unfurl from it. And so it's a 500-foot combat crab that has a bunch of allies. Here's the allied ships along with you. See how small these Spelljammer ships are? Like this crab claw could snap this scorpion in half. Just snap. Hey, Fred, it's good to see you, my guy. So we have this massive crab, this combat crab, and we've taken the time to build out all the levels inside of it. And this is the main tank. It's like, yeah, Vokath's like, yeah, if you guys are gonna fight these guys, I need to make sure I'm taking care of you because I'm trying to win mineral rights from all of your moons by providing you with ships. It's in my invested interest to help us win this fight. If the Zraxians come in and kick the crap out of you, you're all going to be stranded, and you're all going to be pissed at me. I could help. Let's make sure we have a win here. So you form a fleet between all of these ships and the massive crab. The crab can tank. All you got to do is hold them off, punch them in the nose. If they can lose, like, say, a third of their ships. They come in with 12 ships. If you can knock out 4 of them, they'll leave. That won't be too difficult. It should only take maybe 3 rounds of combat. So the way that it's set up is you're doing arena combat, hand-to-hand combat with different monsters, and then you're doing some diplomacy stuff. And then during the diplomacy, the elves show up. That's rules as written. That's exactly how the adventure is written. At that point, you have 10 minutes before they arrive, because you'll see it in the scry, in the far scry. You'll see them coming using your Ori station, and so you'll get an alert. Hey, we've got elves coming in. that's your chance to like get people on board with you real quick. Look, I've been killing it in the arena. Now let me help you. Let me show you what kind of a commander I can be in combat in space. And as soon as you get them all board, and whoever doesn't lose a ship during the battle automatically is on board with you. If they lost a ship, you have to go through diplomacy with a promise of resupplying them a ship after the fact. So now you're in debt to them to go help them find replacement ships for the ones that they lost. So that's the skinny of it. Once we finish doing the map, once we finish the artwork for the battle crab, we're going to build out the fleet combat so you can see how the numbers weigh out. And yeah, and then we'll be able to tally-ho from there. I will build it into a PDF. We'll publish it on DMsGuild. We'll bundle it with the actual Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that we created, so you have another example of fleet combat. There's a total of 3 fleet combat battles that we have in the Lives of Axis conversion guide. We did this. What I'm talking about now, we did this to the entire book already. Now I'm just running basically victory laps by making more stuff to add into the Lives of Axis to lean further and further into the kind of crap that you can do with these mechanics. So hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks. Here, I'll since you're new here, I will show you all of the bits. So this is where it's at right now, and then here's the when you lift off the tower on top, it's large enough for a 100-foot spelljamming ship to basically nest in there. This one has legs, which means it has a flight speed as well as a walking speed. And its default walking speed is basically 5 squares at the 50-foot scale. Each of these squares is 50 feet. So this is a ramp that leads from the interior. Open the doors, you get into the abdomen here, climb up to the front of the ship. You crawl out here, 5, 10, 15, and now you're flying. You just basically walk out and drop out just like a bee would drop out of a nest. You just drop into the ship and poof, you're off and you're flying already. That's the next layer, and then underneath the next layer underneath that ramp that I showed up top, that comes down to here. Here's a door that leads out into a main guest. This is Vokath's personal chamber. His personal chamber is here. Washroom is here. I don't have all the like rugs and stuff like that, but there's a secret door and another secret door that'll lead up to his station. Here's a double door that he's size large, so he occupies a 10-foot space. These are 50-foot squares. That's 10 feet wide. It's 20 pixels. That's 10 feet. So that's a double door. Each door is 5 feet. This one is 10 feet, so it's easy for the Mercane to navigate this space. Here's another double door. It'll lead to a ramp that goes down further into the structure, or you double door open and it leads out to an exterior patio. That's a causeway that leads to the stairway that leads to the center top of the arena. And we'll talk about the arena more as we go further into the structure. So dropping down from his tower here, double door here, double door here. You can move through here to be in the chamber, or you can wrap all the way around here. This is his dais. He rides in a giant throne with little robotic crab legs underneath him. And if it drops weight and clutches the structure, it automatically empowers the ship as a spelljamming ship. So anytime you can press a button on his throne, it drops and seals to the ship, and then the legs unfurl from underneath it. So while he's riding around in a little spider throne of his own, it drops, and then it expands awareness to be a crab at the 500-foot scale, instead of just Vokath on his mobile throne, his crawling throne, which occupies a 10-foot space. So then he has double doors here that go down a ramp to the next level, or it goes over here. This is a hidden trap door, but this is his private box that overlooks the arena. It's open space. Hey, and then I need to get rid of that. This is the next level down. Let's see. Oops, I skipped one. There. So there. This is the next level down, right? Here, right. This comes down from Vokath's room, and this goes down to the servant level. So it opens up here. This is a kitchen for cooking. This is a sundries and washroom area, like cleaning supplies and stuff to take care of Vocath. And then you have these waiter double doors here and here that lead out to the pavilion level. This pavilion level, when it's not in combat form, where is the... There's that, and under frame. There you go. When it doesn't have, when its legs are still curled up underneath and it's peaceful, it has these loading docks that are extended out. And the way that the adventure is written, it has different ships docked here. You can get off the dock, go down the causeway, through this open door, up to the railing, and now you're overlooking the arena. Vocath is in a level above you in a skybox looking down on everyone, and then this is the level that everyone else is at. This is that trap door that's underneath Vocath's chamber here, so he can just press a button and then he can immediately, like if something weird is happening in the arena, like an assassination attempt or something, he can just press a button and he drops into the dumbwaiter elevator. This elevator leads to the storage level. This is a zero gravity plane that bisects the top and bottom, separating top side from underside. So any cargo that's placed in here is zero gravity. Here's massive doors that can double fold open, so you could load a 100-foot wide ship into this space. Well, 50 feet, a 50-foot wide ship into this space that's 200 feet long, and then you can close the doors behind it to conceal a smuggler ship, for instance, or just backload a ton of cargo, or like ore or whatever else it is that he's dealing with. And since it's 0G right here, this is a little walkway and this is a 5-foot scale. This is 5 feet wide. So this can drop down. Anything that gets dropped down that shaft will bob and hit zero gravity here, and then can just flow out. So Vocath can use that as an escape route to get out of the way and hide himself inside the ship. Let's see, arena here, and the other thing worth mentioning is so that's the drop elevator, and it just opens up here so you can lift and drop things from the cargo layer. Here is a mirror of soul trapping. As written in the adventure, it has a mirror of soul trapping that has a number of creatures. So all he has to do is speak a command word, and the creatures appear on the floor of the arena where your characters are at. So this is, you know what I don't have is I don't have a door that leads into the arena for medium-sized creatures to fight. I need to fix that. We'll get to that. But so this mirror of soul trapping has all sorts of monsters in it, and he speaks a command word and thinks of one of the monsters, and it appears in the arena for whoever to fight. And then he can speak another command word, and it gets pulled back into the mirror so it can heal. So you don't have to kill it. All you got to do is beat it to submission, and then it'll pull it back into the mirror. The fun thing about this is that using Spelljammer mechanics, this mirror of soul trapping can be angled up, and when it is, the soul trapping hits this amplifier here. This is a polished. This is like a lens. It's an amplifying lens. So he could project those creatures up to a mile away. So he could target a ship and drop monsters onto that ship while they're still a mile away on their way in, to start attacking everybody aboard the ship before they even get to his base, to soften people up. It could also be used just to deal raw radiant damage in like a Robotech massive beam of damage, which is I think it does 2d12 times 10 damage, a radiant damage, and it can hit anything up to a mile away. So you can either throw creatures at you, or it can just hit you with a channel of damage. And then from there, bop, 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 arena. And then we get to the lower decks. There's the interior legs. Here's the underdeck. So gravity flipped, and there's still a huge hollow space here inside of the abdomen where all the cargo is at. Here's that loader that we saw to the elevator shaft, and this drops to the floor. This is the servants level. So each of these is it's basically, what is this? 50 feet across, 25. This is basically 12 feet, like a 10 by 30 foot space is a dormitory. So each of them have their own dormitory, and this is the number of people that permanently are servants here. Here's a mess hall, kitchen, storage, more storage, all of their rooms. Vocath-sized double door. Vocath can squeeze through here if he wants to intimidate you in your bedroom. But otherwise, opens up here. Here's some bookshelves and couches and tables and a round table to play cards or D&D at. This is their common area. And then we have stairs that go up. Since this is the reverse side, the reverse side of the gravity plane, this is 0. This is 0 point here, and this drops through. But above, quote unquote, above this on the next level up is the here's an open deck that a ship can land on and unload cargo. This claw is animated, like animate object. It's a permanently animated object that can pick up and move cargo and drop it through the hole. Again, that drops through here, that drops down to here, that then gets fed out to the 0 level. And then there's also, this is engineering. Here's replacement parts for stuff. Here's some replacement stuff. They got fabrication. They have like fabricate scrolls so that they can repair these large structures. This is a conveyor belt. This mouth clamps onto an asteroid and starts chewing and shredding off pieces of asteroid to then feed down to the conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt has crushing teeth. And by the time you get to the end of it, there's a trap door here. There's a hole up into the ceiling. These are all trebuchet-sized stones. So these animated claws can reach down through the floor, pick up a stone that's large enough to load onto a trebuchet, and then these trebuchets can be fired. So it has ranged attacks and it has hellaciously damaging melee attacks. So that's basically what this thing's got going on. And it uses all the same statistics that we use to build ships, except that it's so huge it could be considered its own squadron at the 500-foot scale. So this, and then all the other ships in your group, between all of you, you end up having allies. That's one squadron, that's another squadron, that's another squadron, that's another squadron. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Vocath 5. You've got 5 squadrons, and if you show up, and then the elves show up, they have 3 squadrons of 4 ships each, while these are squadrons of 2 ships each. So the squadrons, there's technically 12 ships. So there's 2 ships. 4 ships can occupy the space, but they have twice that. Like this and this could be combined into one squadron if I wanted to. This and this could be combined into one squadron if I wanted to at the 500-foot scale. So that'd be 1, 2, 3. It'd be a total of 3 500 feet squared filled. But you don't have to pack it that dense. And I want to break it up a little bit to be smaller groups, because each character can take command of a separate squadron during the battle until you get close enough to board the ship if you want. And then you can drop down into 5-foot scale, pull out swords, and start stabbing elves in the throat. Or you can just keep it distant and lob damage at their ships until 4 of them have been wrecked so bad that they got to run away. So there's 12 of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus 9. 9 of you. They outnumber you in number of ships, but you have more mass than them. But keep in mind, the point here is you're probably not going to kill all the elves before they decide to run away. If they lose 1/3 of their ships, they're going to leave. But the challenge is every one of these ships that get lost means that you now have to negotiate with whoever owned that ship. So this is about how quickly can we knock them out and push the bully away before it starts blotting out our allies, and we have to do extra work to get them on board with us. So that's the challenge. Drive away 1/3 of the elves before they destroy any of your ships, and you'll win everybody on your side automatically. A partial success is by the time you drive the elves away, for every ship that's lost, you have to do the diplomacy mission, the diplomacy challenge that's actually written in the adventure. That's when that turns on. So this gives you a means of being able to lean to step over non-combat options because they didn't make any combat rules. So this is a way to step over the lack of combat rules to be able to create new challenges where your characters can actually act heroic and stand up to bullies. And I know that I started playing D&D when I was 12 because of how disempowered I was. I just think it's fair to create adventures now that I'm an adult and looking back at my childhood and thinking about like what kind of lessons would I want to teach my son, being able to teach them to stand up to bullies and always do what's right through D&D, making games like this, I think that's a win for everyone involved. So, having said all that shit, thanks for going for the ride with me, because this stuff is important to me. I think it's really neat. And so we're going to, let's make this a new layer, and we're going to call it claws. So now we're going to zoom in our claw layer here. What's up? Yeah. Well, these are like 6-level characters. The ships can take a ton of damage for you. The book, the book has an extensive free preview, so you can go check out the ship chapter to talk about how many hit points it has, so you can figure out. And it basically, I teach you how to build ships, and then I give you. Let's get down to the ships. I teach you how to build ships, all the mechanics that go into it based on how big the ship is, cargo, cost, hit point capacity, damage thresholds, all that stuff is in here. And then we have all the pre-generated ships from the actual Spelljammer Adventures in Space here. And then we created the fighter craft category, which are smaller than 50 feet, like up to 50 feet in size. And then, so here's examples of all of them on a grid, and we have the number systems here showing you all the different weapons that these things have. Look at this Night Spider, the Theurgy Night Spider. This thing is fucking bristling with weapons. It's got the C. C stands for grappling claws in its mouth. These number 2s here, these are all piercing rams, because each leg acts as a spear, so it can spear and stab and grab your ship to net you up and hold you. It has all these ballistas, trebuchet, harpoon flingers for anti-personnel weaponry. It's got all that shit decked out on here. So they're warships, man. They are hardcore warships, and they can just put tons of people in its belly. Every time it captures people, it just basically scoops them up and dumps them into its belly. The Nautiloid are like that too. These tentacles can reach around and grab ships, can grab fighter craft out of the air, or even can grab individual people if they're free floating. So, and then you have the fighter craft, like the Spiderling. The Theurgy fighter craft is only 40 feet long. It's the size of a TIE fighter, basically. And then the Cuttlefish, it's a 20 foot by 20 foot. It's the Cuttlefish is a living. It's basically a living creature of the Illithid. It's like a type of Neolithid, right? It's a mutated larva that they grew to this 20-foot size, and if it can stay alive and get fed long enough, it will eventually grow into a Nautiloid. So eventually, I'll have a number of books scaling from 20 feet to 500 feet in size, because we're going to build one of these for the Illithid, we're going to build one of them for the Theurgy, we're going to build one of them for the Elves, we're going to build one for the Orcs, and we're going to build one for the Dwarves. Oh yeah, and for the Beholders. So we're going to build out massive 500-foot structure ships for all of them. Just give me enough time. That's what I do on Mondays and Thursdays. I do Spelljammer shit. So that's what we're doing. But yeah, this whole book just walks you through the entire process of how to build fleets, ships, then fleets, how to command them, how to conduct combat at the in fighter crafts, vessels, and squadrons, and fleets, how to use your normal character action economy for basically the combat that you already know, except that we have means of you being able to scale that up and to use your action economy appropriately. So, having said all that, long story short, way too late, Kearney. Let's not even go there. But here's the colors that I need for what we have, and then there. The central light, I always keep the source of light in the center of the vessel so that I have a consistent light source. I don't want to have like a light source coming from over exterior, because what if the light source isn't painting this way? It'd look weird. So I always make the light source self-referential in that the brightest part is always in it. Like, let's go look at that. Like, for instance, here in this dragonfly, see the central light here is in the center of the body, and it curves out and creates shadow, and then these legs stick out so you can see lighting there. but it's assumed that the source of light is like at the center of the ship. And then the light like radiates out from there, and that's how I make my shading and highlighting decisions. So that's what we're doing here as well. This is the central light, and you can see that the light is like, as the structure curves away like this, the lighting comes less and less as you move further down the curve. And then this tower is at a higher elevation than the arena, so the light that's coming off the arena naturally highlights here, and you can see the shadow work here for the ramps that go down. And here's some cast shadow from the structure here. So we're just using, you know, normal laws of physics to build the thing. So let's start getting to work again, now that I've spent a sufficient time. But yeah, the first hour of this session was spent making the Mega-Kaiju. The Star Kraken, the Mega-Kaiju, is a 1,500-foot Kraken. And it goes to the Rock of Brawl to eat all of its crops on the underside of the asteroid. So when everything's said and done, we'll be offering a similar combat encounter to chase it away from destroying all of the food on the Rock of Brawl. Not necessarily pirate or nautical. It's technically nautical themed because Spelljammer is ships in space. That's how I can cheat and get away with that, because if you don't know, Kraken Week is coming. It'll be here next week, and there's going to be a ton of folks that are making neat little videos about nautical adventures in D&D. And although it's definitely got a D&D 5e focus, there's a lot of people that are looking at alternative systems to see how the pirate fantasy can be expressed in different ways, both in 5e and other game systems. And so I took this opportunity to use the other category and basically brag about this Spelljammer book and show off some of the cool stuff that you can do with it. I'll also have, at some point next week, I'll have another video about losing air during combat when you're fighting underwater or in an environment where you can't breathe. It's taking damage can take the wind out of you, and sometimes that's literal. So that's a very short, like God willing, that'll only be like a 5-minute video to just basically walk through what the playtesting's been like and what the mechanics look like and how easy it is to implement. But it's a great. I love the cool thing about fighting underwater is that once you run out of breath, you've basically got 2 rounds or you're dead. And it doesn't matter how many hit points your character has or how high their saving throw bonus may be. If they run out of air, they're dead. They're dead. They're dead in 2 rounds. So that is a massive equalizer and threat condition that basically starts off with the same level of intensity at first level and stays equally deadly your entire character's career. And the playtest that we were doing was only 3rd and 4th. It was 4th level characters fighting underwater, and every time they took damage, their air supply was being whittled down. So it became a major threat for them after only a couple of hits. Like, you have to go running for a new air supply. So it's a really fun way to, like, if you provide like a top of the pool that your character has to leave the battle, potentially drawing attacks of opportunity to potentially grab and pull you back down underwater. But after you've taken some damage and your hit point and your breath supply starts running low, you got to go get a fresh breath. So if your characters are able to carry water breathing, obviously is a really valuable spell in underwater scenarios, but it's not always available. And if it's like, if you're like, say, out in space and you have no air supply, then you can hold your breath for a number of minutes equal basically to 1 plus your constitution modifier, minimum of 1 minute, which is basically 10 rounds. And 10 rounds, every round you would have a stack of breath points that count as hit points. So every time you take damage, you lose that many rounds of breath. That's basically how it works. That's the big reveal there for you. However many points of damage you take, that's how many rounds of breath that you lose. So if you have a shit constitution score and you get caught out underwater, you basically got 2 rounds to get the fuck out, or you're dead. And if your character is like, say, once you guys get to 5th level or above and you have access to Revivify, great. Your character's drowning. Now you have to run away from the battle and toss a 2nd level spell slot onto them to get them back up and running. Hopefully you've got an air supply someplace where you can cast that spell. Otherwise, they're just going to drown, and you have just a little bit of time to get them back. So that's a fun little mechanic. It shouldn't take very long for me to be able to explain it. I mean, it only took me a few minutes here to explain it. So hopefully I'll have some cool. I can use the horrible maps that I drew, and the silly little characters I grabbed offline to demonstrate that mechanic. But that should be a short little video just talking about how you can make high-level underwater stuff a high-level threat to characters, and to give them a reason to want, like, to really make sure they want to kit out to be able to breathe water, spend the resources necessary to be able to acquire that ability. Otherwise, they're going to be suffering. The cool thing about this is that I only have to do one side of this because I can just mirror it and duplicate the effect on the other side. So I don't have a lot to worry about in the construction here. Just need to make sure that looks good. So I do this Mondays and Thursday nights like this every week. It's typically a 2-hour block of time, 7:30 Seattle time, which is West Coast USA, Pacific time, which is Universal time -8, I guess. So yeah, I do this on Mondays and Thursdays every week. On Tuesdays and Fridays at lunchtime, I work on the martial powers system. We're converting, we're basically creating an alternate 5e magic system that's not spellcasting for martial characters to be able to do boosts, exploits, maneuvers, strikes, and reaction powers using a mana pool, kind of like the color mana system that I have for MTG characters. I'm creating an alternate magic system so that, like, barbarians, fighters, rogues, monks have a magic system to throw mana around as well, because Magic the Gathering is an IP of Wizards of the Coast, and they have a couple campaign settings that they've put out that are Magic the Gathering themed because they're cool worlds, but they didn't provide any mechanics for using color magic. So I created a number of supplements that are on the DMsGuild, and you can actually click on those here. The Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rule Packet. Here's the Spelljammer book that I made. And here's some, like, Spell Point Warlocks. That's a pay what you want. That's almost a gold medal. Like, it's sold like 496 books so far. Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica converts Warlocks, creates otherworldly patrons out of the guilds of Ravnica, so that you can, like, devote your soul to Rakdos, and you become a warlock of not just Rakdos the demon, but of the belief of Rakdos, like the philosophy of Rakdos. That becomes your patron saint. It's just the demon Rakdos. It's named after him because he's eternal, and he represents the chaos and glee and suffering. So he is like, he's the patron of Rakdos, which is black and red magic. Suffering, impulse, Slaven appetites. If you were to express Rakdos in a Warhammer's 40k dialect, he would be Slaanesh. And the entire cult of Rakdos that forms around him are basically murder clowns that kidnap and torture people on stage for others. I actually love the cult of Rakdos, and what I love the most about them is expressing them as good characters. You can have good characters that worship this god of death, because in his circus of pain, what you can do is you can take people that are above normal law, and as a vigilante, capture, like, child abusers, stuff like that. Think horrible stuff. Take them from their homes where they think they're safe. take them to the circus and torture them to death for everyone that ever, in honor of anyone that had ever been hurt as a child, for instance. I actually, before Ravnica was a thing back in the 90s, I ran a Dark Sun campaign that way, where the team were a bunch of halflings that would dress up as human children, and they were all bard assassins and rogues and scions, and their whole shtick was to basically break up a child abuse rings and slavery rings. So they would disguise themselves as human children, and when they were purchased, they would slaughter everyone that was involved, and then they would use their psionics to make to basically rub it out of common memory, so they could then prey upon the next molesters that got onto their radar. That was like maybe a 4-month campaign. I mean, it's a kind of a limited palette, you know. There's not much variety in that type of activity, but for the time for our team, there were some of us on that team that it was a very cathartic experience, and it was amazing to be a part of that. That is probably one of my proudest D&D campaigns ever. It was so cool, just how into dealing with these people, my team, and this was in college, 19, 23-year-olds, and it was scary how many of them really had a yearning to empower themselves this way in their adventures. And on top of that, how creative they were at being able to create these little blackmail, these entrapments, like to catch a killer, sort of entrapment things. It was really, really cool. And I'm very, very proud to have been a part of all that experience. It was super neat. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that's why we show up to the show, right? That's why you show up live to to listen to me ramble about all the shit that I've done in D&D over the past 26 years. I started back in '87, and I basically the only way my neighbors would play is if I DM. So I basically started off and was a forever DM since day one, and I spent all my time in school making maps and monsters and figuring out different ways to build scenarios and how to lean in and like make this my thing. Never look back. Worth every moment. But Dark Sun is the perfect place to explore dark shit like that, because the whole society revolves around enslavement. So you can take that in any direction to any degree of enslavement that you want, and then do something about it. Empower your characters, empower your players to become the kind of characters that are able to do something about those sort of things. Because I've talked about this a number of times, but all my best friends in my life were people that I relied on in D&D, that proved to me over and over again, every time we played, that they are not going to run from a fight, they're not going to leave you behind, and in a game of fantasy where they could choose to do anything, the people that I liked at my table were the ones that were actively looking for things that they could do to help other people, non-player characters, non-existing people that had absolutely no real consequence on their actual player's life, and find out what they could do to make their lives better. How can I improve this fantasy world we're all agreeing on playing in? What can I do? And these are the type of people that took that attitude and extended that into the real world. And that's how D&D became real world adventuring for us. It's that how can we be brave? How can we be honest? How can we help other people? And that's like, those are the people that are still my friends, that I'm still happy to see, 20 some odd years later. Like, these are the people that I don't mind leaving my door unlocked for them to come in. That's what D&D can provide for people, if you can get into that sort of space. And I was particularly blessed in that manner. So I am incredibly grateful for the opportunities, experiences that this game has provided to me. So I consider it an honor to be able to create things that also empower other people to take command of their life and allow their heroics in game to inspire the heroics in their own life. That's my hope. So whatever that's worth to anybody. Where are we at? 9:16. I got 20 minutes left. So we'll finish this claw and probably its head, and then on Monday when we come back, we'll flip them upside down and we'll work on the underbelly, doing the same lighting techniques and stuff. So we're getting to the end. Once this thing is completed, we'll be building the fleet, the battleground for the fleet, and statting out the fleet so you know like how much damage and armor class and all that crap. We'll just be using the book that I published on DMsGuild to deck all that shit out, and then I'll start playtesting it. So I'll ask members of my Patreon, and then I'll take it out to my Discord. You can access, if anyone that's interested, you can get into my Discord. My Discord community is on the About page of my Patreon. It should still be live. If it's died, I'll replace it. But here's the Discord link. I update it weekly. It might still be live. I'm not 100%. Ah, crap! It went dead. All right, give me. I'll update it. I'll update it when I'm done here. But so by the time this is done, in 20 minutes I'll update it. So stick around to the end, and then I'll jump over. And anyone that's interested in participating in my playtests can access my Discord just through the About page of my Patreon, or you can join my Patreon and get first rights to sit. Basically how I do it. Or if you just want to hang out and talk about this kind of shit, or you got your own ideas, I do 5e like game mechanics and technical editing. I do it for $25 per hour. So you can hand me a document and ask me how long are you willing to spend with it. That's what you would budget, and then I'll chew on it and I'll tell you what I think. So that's available for folks if they want, and I should offer a discount to that for my Patreons. I also do landscape painting, Bob Ross style. And if somebody wanted to drop $200 to me on Patreon, I would make them a full-page color landscape painting. Let's do it like this. I only need to do half of it. I have to remember I only need to do half. Wrong. Nope. There. Chip chop chiree chiroo chirum. Looking pretty good there, boyo. Looking pretty good. Transform. Flip vertical. I like this song a lot. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. Nice. All right, top side's done. Server deck. These game planks, as it were, they retract underneath the frame and then fold up to block the doors so that you have blaster doors all around inside the arena, so that you can't just walk in and start messing people up. A little more difficult than that for you. But we keep that layer concealed when the crab is in combat mode. So that's our official token. But I want to flip it over and do lighting on the underbelly as well. So let's see. Interior top. See, okay, let's check this out. The interior top. This is the top of the legs, the joints. And then here's the underside of them, where it tapers into a point like this. Like if the gear top is here, and then there's this like this crystal structure here that then liquid and pours into the spike that we see like here. This is a leg that's unfurling currently. It's just mess. Like it doesn't explain the crystals. It's just like a thing. These crystals, they're basically ballasts, so that the top side has as much weight as the bottom side, so that the center of the gravity plane can stay where the ships are at. Like, so see that crystal is as large as the tower here, but we're offsetting the mass instead by having those legs unfurl and then be able to maneuver around. So anyway, difference. It's a difference. We only need, here's the underside. So this is all open space. I mean, if we really want to get real. We just took care of the claws, right? Because they're the same top and bottom. It's just reversed. And then we can go fetch the legs. Here's the claws. Legs. Duplicate. Extract. Legs. Underside unlocked. We're just about out of time today. So what I need to do is rebuild this where Y4YM are you at? Why isn't this stuff being lit up? I must have. Oh, right, because of the frame. Okay, cool. So that means we get to fill this out. There. This is the leg we get to work on. That disappears. Make that disappear. Perfect. So we'll be back on Monday, and we'll keep doing this. We'll finish it, and then we'll start in on the fleet battle map. And then again on Tuesdays and Fridays, we work on the martial power system. Tomorrow, when we're back at lunch, it'll be, I don't know what time it's going to be. Math is hard sometimes. Let's see. I'm gonna do that. Yeah. Again, it's more brightly lit towards the center. The reason why the top legs don't have it is because the arena is sitting on top of the legs, but on this underside, this is where they all curl up and protect. Like they can curl up around the trebuchet while it's underneath. And then let's see. So yeah, that's we'll be doing. They're going to announce the Ranger and look at it, and then they're going to post the updates for what the Ranger is, which will give us an opportunity to make sure that the options that we have in martial power still work with what the Ranger is. And I feel like that should be empty, like it's being blocked by the frame. That feels right. I like that. Wednesday's kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes at lunch, if I'm going to be busy during my day job, I'm going to be. It's going to be Wednesday. So when I'm available on Wednesday, I typically do. Recently, I've been doing Spelljammer subclass design that utilizes the mechanics that we've built in this book. But grab the dark here. Yes. This looks good. Like that. Saturday mornings is a grab bag. I'll do whatever I want on Saturday. It's my day. Sometimes I do commissions. Other times I play test, so sometimes I don't show up on Saturdays. And or I could do like book art or cartography. Since this Kraken week is coming up, I think Saturday I'm going to be probably spending some time on. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to spend the bulk of Saturday after stream, building, making videos for Kraken Week, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to conduct business prior to that. What's going on up here? And we got 4 minutes left. Actually, this is a pretty natural place for us to stop. So I think I'm going to just go ahead and call this here. There's not a lot we need to do down here. It'll just be the same process as we did up. This will be easy, he says. Jinx. All right, but that's it for today, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and call it quits here. Seriously, go check out if you came in late or you're catching this at some point, go check out the front hour, because it takes a while for me to walk through it, but I was just literally walking through in real time. How do these mechanics work for the Mega-Kaiju destroying asteroids? And it works. It works. I already knew it worked, but you always have to build an example of it. And this is the first time I'm literally just pulling everything together into a single concise statement of like, this is how a kaiju works. There's episodes I have of the Spelljammer Warforged Machines. That's us building Gundam, Veritech, Valkyrie, Escaflowne War Titan constructs that are basically ships that are in humanoid form that can pick up massive weapons and fight kaiju, be the same size as kaiju, like a 500-foot giant robot fighting kaiju is going to have shitloads of hit points of damage just like the Kaiju does. So you can fight them toe to toe. So instead of being like a little 5-foot character against a 1,500-foot Kraken, blapping it in the eye, trying to make it go away, you can just pull out your 500-foot sword and cleave into it and make it go, ow, I want to leave now. And it does. So then you can chase after it at spell jamming speed, just like if you're on a Veritech, you know, you can just pursue stuff. And anyway, it's pretty fucking cool. I'm excited. But that's it for now, guys. So I'm going to be back in the morning. That's right, Monday through Friday in the mornings. I work on Eberron cartography for the Eberron adventure that is going to be published on the DMsGuild. So you guys can check that stuff out too. And I think I want to see if the shot, if today's shot is going to end with this top side. God, that looks so cool. We're going to turn this into a token that'll occupy a 500-foot square. I love this stuff. I love this stuff. It's so much fun to do this. All right. Hey, if this stuff's cool, you like, subscribe, blah. And I'll see everybody on the other side. Thanks a lot.